everyone, it's Miss Rachel again from the William Jeans Library, and we're celebrating National Poetry Month, April, and I've been reading all different types of poetry, silly poetry, serious poetry, rhyming, not rhyming, poetry from different places in the world, and today is no different. We're going to read two poems, and the second poem is done in the style of what's called a shovel poem. Well, excuse us. Pardon the interruption. That was Katniss, who also enjoys poetry. A shovel poem, which sounds really strange. So I'm going to tell you how a shovel poem is formed, because this is something that you could try at home that could be interesting and fun and different than anything you might have tried before. A golden shovel poem. Sorry, not just a shovel poem, but a golden shovel poem. You take a line from one poem and you take each word of that line and you write it on a different line. And each word becomes the end of a new line. I think that doesn't sound like it makes sense at all. So when I actually read the poem and then the golden shovel poem to go along with it, you'll see what I mean. The book that this is from is called One Last Word, which is a way of describing the golden shovel poem. It's a collection and written by Nikki Grimes, and I read some poems by Nikki Grimes earlier this month, but these are a little bit different. All the poems in this book that are not by Nikki Grimes are by poets who were writing during the time of the Harlem Renaissance, which is about 100 years ago. And it was a time when a lot of people of African descent were moving from the South up to New York to start a new life. And it was a time when there was lots of amazing music and writing, all kinds of art that was flourishing coming from the African American community, particularly in Harlem. It was called, that time was called the Harlem Renaissance. So what Nikki Grimes has done, who is a contemporary poet and author, is she has collected poems written by a lot of the greatest artists from the Harlem Renaissance, and she has written a golden shovel poem to go along with the selected poems from these older, no longer living poets from the time of the Harlem Renaissance. And for each set of poems, she's included artwork by some amazing illustrators. And it was very hard for me to choose. Do I want to choose to read to you because I love the poem that was written a long time ago, or because I love the poem that Nikki Grimes wrote to go with it, or because I love the artwork? So, just like I say every day, I hope that when the library reopens, you will check out this book, One Last Word, so that you can see everything inside of it. So, the first poem I'm going to read is by a gentleman by the name of Countee Cullen, and this is special, particular to this book by Nikki Grimes, because the first time Nikki Grimes read one of her poems in public was at her local branch of the public library, and the name of that branch was the Countee Cullen Library in New York City. Just like the library where I work is called the William Jeans Library, is named after someone important and special. Nikki Grimes grew up going to the Countee Cullen Library, and that branch was named after this poet. So I'm going to read a poem by Countee Cullen, who is no longer living. He lived about 100 years ago. And the name of his poem is called For a Poet. I have wrapped my dreams in a silken cloth and laid them away in a box of gold. Where long will cling the lips of the moth, I have wrapped my dreams in a silken cloth. I hide no hate, I am not even wroth, who found earth's breath so keen and cold. I have wrapped my dreams in a silken cloth and laid them away in a box of gold. I'm going to show you this poem, even though there's no picture on this page. I want you to see the first line of this poem. Each word in that first line is going to show up in this poem at the end of each line. So if you read these words down like this, you'll see that it is the first line of the poem that I just read. But it's a new poem formed from those words. And the new poem is the Golden Shovel poem, written by Nikki Grimes, based on The Poet by Countee Cullen. And before I read it, I will tell you that the amazing illustration that goes along with this poem, I just love that illustration so much. It's by Frank Morrison, who has illustrated a number of children's books and has won a number of awards for his artwork. He's from Atlanta, Georgia. So the artwork that goes along with this poem by Nikki Grimes is by him. The Golden Shovel poem, this is Ginger. He is another poetry fan. The cats can't stay away when they hear poetry. They just come running right over, right? Are you ready to hear? Maybe not. This is called A Safe Place. Dream killers daily stalk the streets you and I travel, trying to trip us up, but we can give them the slip. I have learned to protect my heart songs. I keep them wrapped in the well wishes of my family, the encouragement of my truest friends. Sometimes using pen and ink, I anchor my dreams and let them sink in the margins of a diary. Or maybe I slide them in a smooth sandalwood box buried beneath my bed. But a dream called impossible, that I tuck safely between the silken folds of my private thought, tough as steel, thin as cloth. So you can look again at the last word of each line and you can read, I have wrapped my dreams in a silken cloth. So she takes some of the ideas and the inspiration from the poem written about 100 years ago by Countee Cullen, and she makes a new poem about it called A Safe Place. So we have some wonderful old poetry, some wonderful new poetry, some wonderful artwork, and a whole book filled with more of the same. So I hope that you learned a little something new about a different kind of poetry in a different time in history, and that you might be inspired to maybe make one of your own Golden Shovel poems, or to check out this book or some other Harlem Renaissance poetry when the library reopens. It was good to share with you, and I'll talk to you again later. Bye.